This video is going to discuss using gustar with nouns. So far you've probably used it with some infinitives to say things like me gusta comer. And now we're going to work on saying things like I like books or you like tomatoes. Before we delve into that, we're going to discuss some grammatical points that will help you understand exactly what's going on when we get into using gustar. So, you probably know what a subject is. A subject performs the action of a verb in its sort of simplest definition. So in a sentence like, I like books, I is the subject because it's performing the action of liking. Now we have a new concept to introduce, which is the object of a verb. And an object is sort of the opposite of a subject in the sense that it receives the action of the verb instead of performing it. So in other words, the action of the verb is being performed on the object. So we might have a sentence like, I bake cookies. Now we have our verb here, bake, and we have our subject, I. So to identify an object, a helpful tool is to ask yourself, subject, verb, what? And the answer to this question will be the object. So I bake what? I bake cookies. Thus, your object here is cookies. It's the thing that is receiving the action of baking. So for right now, we're going to focus on using object pronouns, which I'll abbreviate OP. And an object pronoun is, like a subject pronoun, just a pronoun that replaces a noun as the object of a verb. So let's take a look at some Spanish object pronouns. Me, te, le, nos, vos, les. And you're probably familiar with these because you have used them to work with gustar before. For example, you would say, me gusta bailar, I like to dance. Now you're probably wondering why we would have object pronouns that aren't subjects in the place where subjects would normally go in a sentence. Because do not be confused, this is not a subject pronoun. This cannot be used as a subject. You cannot say me bailo for I dance. You have to say yo bailo. So you're probably wondering how on earth this can be here and why gustar is conjugated like that, on and on and on. So let's break it down. We'll start with a common mistake that a lot of people make when they first start using gustar. Instead of saying me gusta bailar, they would say yo gusto bailar, which hopefully looks kind of silly to you because you're so used to writing it this way. But this, if you think about it, is a really rational mistake to make because you have your subject, I, your verb gustar conjugated to match that subject, and then the object, the thing that is being liked, bailar. And if gustar actually meant to like, then this would be a perfectly correct translation. However, gustar does not actually mean to like. It's translated that way because that is what it means in a sort of theoretical sense. But in a technical, usage-based sense, gustar means to please. And if you think about it, anything you write, anything you use to like with, you can also use to please with. So this isn't really a dramatic shift in things, but it does make using gustar a little bit complicated. So let's look at it in English first. Say you have a sentence, I like cookies. Now in this sentence, we have our verb like, and I is our subject. I is performing the action of liking, and cookies is the object because it is the thing that is being liked. Now if we rewrite this sentence with to please, but keeping the meaning the same, we would have cookies please me. Now, the difference in meaning is not existent. This means the same as this, pretty much. But the structure of the sentence has changed considerably. So now our verb is please instead of like. And the thing that is doing the pleasing is cookies. And the thing receiving the pleasing is me. So if we compare these two sentences, you can see that we've sort of switched our subjects and objects. And that is why gustar works the way that it does. Because gustar means to please and not to like, our subject of gustar will be the thing that is doing the pleasing, and our object will be the person being pleased. Alright, that's a really important concept for you to understand. The subject is the thing doing the pleasing, and the object is the person being pleased. That's why a lot of people initially think that gustar works kind of backwards. So let's look at an example sentence and sort of walk through why it goes the way that it does. Alright, so let's go back to our favorite, me gusta comer, and see how this sentence is working. Alright, so we have here a conjugated form of gustar, and you'll notice that it's conjugated with the el ella usted ending. So we have pleases right here. Now, let's think about what we know about the subject and object of gustar. The thing doing the pleasing is the subject. So in this sentence, me or I is not doing the pleasing. Comer is doing the pleasing. Eating is pleasing me, alright? So comer is going to be our subject. And now we can see that this conjugation actually makes a lot of sense because an infinitive uses the el ella usted conjugation. So our verb is conjugated correctly. And for right now, just ignore the order of the words, alright? So we have our subject and we have our verb, and that means our object over here is our object pronoun, me. And that makes sense too, because now we have an object pronoun acting as the object of our sentence. So our literal translation is eating pleases me. Eating pleases me. And our sentence grammatically works in exactly that way. We have our subject over here, our gustar conjugated to fit that subject, and our object pronoun. Now you're probably wondering why the order of the words is so weird. Because in English, usually we start with our subject, then our verb, and then our object. Well, in Spanish, object pronouns come before their verbs. So your me, te, le, nos, vos, les will always come before gustar. And the reason that comer is after the verb is just sort of structural tradition. You can technically say comer me gusta, but things can get confusing. So for right now, let's stick with our usual order of object pronoun, form of gustar, and then the subject. So as long as you know that the subject is here, you'll be fine. Let's work on translating some sentences. So, let's take an English sentence. I like books, and translate it to Spanish. Now there are 5 steps that you should go through in the beginning when you do this. Step number 1 is to rewrite using please. So to rewrite the sentence and keep the meaning the same, we would have books please me. Now step number 2 is to identify your subject, which is, in this sentence, books. Books is doing the pleasing. So we have los libros as our subject. Step number 3 is to conjugate gustar. So los libros, is third person, plural, so it's going to be ellos, ellas, ustedes in our conjugation. So we will go from gustar to gustan. Step 4 is to take your object and find the correct object pronoun. So for me, that's me in Spanish. And step number 5 is to put everything in the right order, remembering that we have object pronoun, verb, and finally our subject. Alright, so let's do this. Our object pronoun is me, our verb is gustan, and our subject is los libros. So we have me gustan los libros, which means I like books. Technically, books please me, but same thing. Alright, let's try another one. Let's do he likes cats. Alright, so first step, what is it? Rewrite with to please. Cats please him. Step 2, identify the subject. Cats are doing the pleasing, so los gatos will be our subject. Step 3, conjugate gustar. Again, we have an ellos, ellas, ustedes conjugation, so it will be gustan. Step 4, find our object and choose an object pronoun. Him is being pleased, so our object pronoun will be le. And finally, put everything in the right order. So object pronoun, verb, and subject. That will be le gustan los gatos. Ta-da! Alright, let's try one more and we'll make it a little more interesting. Alright, let's do we like grapes and they like dogs. I know these sentences are really fun and creative. Okay, so basically we have two independent clauses going on here. We like grapes and they like dogs. So we can do each of these separately and then smush them together at the end. So, looking at our first one, step 1, rewrite. Grapes please us. Step 2, identify the subject. Grapes are doing the pleasing, so we have las uvas. Step 3, conjugate gustar. Again, we have gustan. Step 4, identify our object and object pronoun. We have us as our object, so our object pronoun will be nos. And step 5, put everything in order. Oh, excuse me, that's not good. Nos gustan las uvas. Alright, now let's do the other half of our sentence. 1, rewrite. Dogs please them. Step 2, identify the subject. Dogs. So, los perros. Step 3, conjugate gustar. Again, we have gustan. Step 4, identify our object and object pronoun. Them is being pleased, so our object pronoun will be les. And 5, put everything together, and we'll just stick an E in there. Y les gustan los perros. Okay. Nos gustan las uvas y les gustan los perros, which literally translates as grapes please us and dogs please them, but meaning-wise translates as we like grapes and they like dogs. So there you go.